I've never done this over Zoom before. I've given this presentation kind of similarly over the past couple of years. Normally there's a couple like handouts that we'll use. Obviously that's not a thing. If you don't feel comfortable typing or speaking out loud, please just go ahead and type everything into the chat. A lot of it is going to be kind of like participation based, where I might ask like every single person to type something in the comments, kind of just roll with me. We have a couple short videos. We'll make good use of your time and allow you to get back to your evening. But yeah, my name is Jared. I'm the hall director for Sun Villa in Monroe. Glad to see a lot of people here, especially all the RAs that are currently in attendance. Can't get away from me yet. But the whole point of this is to talk about caring for yourself and your calendar. Again, time management in general. This isn't going to be something that is groundbreaking. It's not going to blow your mind, but my goal is for you to walk away from this with something that might change a behavior that allows you to be better when managing your time. But again, I'll have the chat up so I can kind of monitor. So please feel free to type questions or comments or whatever you want to into the chat. So this is a Prezi. It's going to get a little jumpy, so I apologize. It's not to the point where anybody should get motion sick. I didn't do any like the super crazy twirls, but we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, kind of just talking about what is time management. Can anybody quickly in the chat, again, type out what you think time management is or what it means to you? It can be a couple words, it can be a phrase, it can be a definition. Again, this is kind of where the interactivity is going to play in. Effective use of time, completing tasks in a manner of priority. I know everybody else can see the chat, so I don't know why I'm reading them all, but I probably still will. Continue to put in there, continue to think about what time management means. Yeah, using your time wisely, managing your time, organizing your schedule. A lot of that also ties into self-care. So again, thinking about time management, why do you think self-care is contingent upon you being a good manager of your time? Anytime I'm asking a question, again, feel free to put your thoughts in the side or feel free to just kind of, think about them internally. I'm not going to ask anybody to speak or to type if they don't feel like they want to. So a healthy balance of completing tasks and finding time for yourself. Absolutely. You guys have a lot of things to do. I mean, it's going to be important for you to understand how everything is going to work together with your social life, with your academics, with your job, because again, a lot of you are RAs, and a lot of you who aren't probably have other part-time jobs or are going to be getting that, and that plays a lot into your time management and the opportunities for you to be able to care for yourself. A big thing when talking about time management and managing your time are the differences between the words efficiency and effectiveness. So go ahead and take a quick look at those two definitions below, and I really hope it starts to click. What we hear a lot in our roles as supervisors and professionals is people kind of misusing those words or using them interchangeably, but let me tell you, those two words are completely different things. I also threw the definitions for time management and self-care up there. So take just a second, pull that in. Because a lot of these words are going to come into play as we go through the rest of the presentation. Efficiency is getting a lot of tasks done. You're efficient, you're getting a lot done. It's the quantity. Effectiveness is getting the right things done. It's all about the quality. So again, think of efficiency as the quantity, effectiveness as the quality. Neither one are better than the other, but given the situation, pulling from efficiency or effectiveness could be more important. It's going to do a little bit of that, sorry. Okay, so obviously this is usually easier in person when I can see everybody close their eyes. So I'm going to go on the honor system here. A lot of people don't fully understand how quickly time passes. And again, this isn't a big indicator of your ability to manage your time, but just a quick exercise, you can kind of start to see how, whether it's a big task or a little task or, like a day, a week, a month, an hour, a minute, time is going to go by faster than you maybe think. So what I want everybody to do, even though I can't see you, whenever I say go, I want you to close your eyes and I don't want you to open them until you think a minute has passed. So whenever you do open your eyes, look at the screen and pay attention to the time that is remaining, because I want to get a feel at the very end for what time was remaining once you opened your eyes. Hopefully everybody opens their eyes when it says 1 second or 0 seconds remaining. Ideally, and realistically, that's not going to happen. So what I need everybody to do again right now, close your eyes and do not open them until you think a minute has passed, but then pay attention to the time that is on the screen. Okay, ready? Go. This only works if everybody's honest. I am not very good at stuff like this. I consider myself a good manager of my time, but time is an illusion. It passes me by quicker than I realize. Again, whenever you decide to open your eyes, look at the screen. Take a mental picture of how much time has elapsed. Ooh, okay, and that is a minute. So what I want everybody to do, go ahead and type in the chat with how many seconds went by whenever you opened your eyes. I kind of want to get a feel for where everybody was at. Okay, 44, 52, ooh, 56. Did anybody accidentally open their eyes before 30? You didn't get a chance to open your eyes. Okay, Justin, showing up. There you go. And so again, this is very minor in terms of looking at the grand scheme of everything. But this, if you're not a good gauge for a minute, you might not be a good gauge of telling yourself, yeah, I didn't even open my eyes. Thank you for that. That's kind of what I was hoping. Sometimes whenever you're doing an assignment, you're like, I'm going to dedicate 30 minutes to this, and then I'm going to go do laundry or go be productive or whatever. And then time gets by you. This is a very little kind of example. Oh, sorry, that kept going. My apologies. But again, something kind of just to keep in mind is that time is really hard to gauge sometimes. But what I want to quickly get before we get into kind of the meat of the presentation, I know you're like, Jared, you've been talking for 10 minutes. That's okay. I want to quickly know why you're here, what do you want, and how can I help? And again, your answer might be for the incentives. Don't type that in the chat, please. Or hey, my RA made me, and that's okay too. But think about like, what is one thing that you hope to get from this? What is one area in which you wish to improve in terms of time management? So again, take a couple seconds, think about it, type it in the chat if you're willing. And that's gonna give me kind of a place to start as we are discussing some of the upcoming slides. So why are you here? What do you want? How can I help? Motivation to keep on schedule. Ooh, watching online lectures the day they're posted instead of waiting because, oh, you have like, some more time. Let me get a couple others in here. That's okay. We'll go ahead and continue. Oh, thank you. Watching lectures, motivation to wake up earlier on the weekends. Yeah, some of these, again, are academic based. Some of these are work based. Some of these are just personal. But those are things that are going to help me as we move forward. And even if you didn't post, please just be thinking internally about what do I want and what do I need. Okay, so this is normally, again, where I have you write on a piece of paper, but just sit here to yourself. This is not anything I want you to type in the chat, but again, kind of on your own, just think about everything you did yesterday, period. So just take a minute, think to yourself, like if you have to walk through the series of events and every little thing that you did, what does that look like? Give you about a minute or two. And again, participation is voluntary. But what I do want you again to type in the chat is if thinking of everything you did was easy, thinking of everything you did was hard, or if you just sat there like, wait, what did I do yesterday? Kind of, again, in the chat, give me a feel for your ability to recall yesterday's events. Unless you did absolutely nothing, and then, hey, that's pretty easy to remember. We didn't have the day off, so. But think to yourself, whenever you're recalling the prior day, how easy is it to remember what you did? Okay, looks like people are saying it wasn't a busy day because we were off, so it's pretty easy to remember. What did I do yesterday? Yeah, you don't always know, and so if you're having difficulty remembering a day like yesterday, think about how those busier days are going to be. So when we look at efficiency versus effectiveness, it's not about how much you did, but maybe doing some of the right things and being able to remember those important things and were they meaningful? Were they valuable? Did they help you pass the time? Were they contributing to your self-care? Again, a lot of things kind of play into that. Okay. The biggest kind of meat of this is this list I found a while ago that has helped a few people that I worked with every now and then. It's the the 11 signs and symptoms of poor time management and self-care. So as we go through here, it's going to list out one of these signs and symptoms. So again, kind of on your own, what I want you to be thinking about is, yep, I'm really good at this one. Yep, I'm really bad at that one. Hey, maybe I could use some help on this one, because these are things collectively that hopefully you'll be able to recognize, oh, I do that, and I didn't realize that that is hindering my ability to manage my time. So we're going to go through these one at a time, all the way from 1 to 11. We're not going to spend too much time, but I want you to be thinking about the ones where you're like, yep, I'm awesome at this, or like, nope, I'm really bad at this. Because at the end, we're going to quickly go back through them, and I'm going to have people kind of essentially like raise their hands in the chat to say, yep, I'm good, or yep, I'm bad. So starting with number 1, poor punctuality. I think this is kind of a given. Constantly being late, having too much on your plate negatively impacts others, and is often just a sign of respect to be on time. And again, when you think time management, this is kind of one of the first things you think about, being on time. It is right literally in the title, being on time. Poor punctuality. Number 2, rushing. Again, seems pretty straightforward, right? Being overwhelmed and overloaded, trying to get things off your plate. If this is one you struggle with, maybe consider saying no sometimes. It's going to take less off your plate, and it's going to allow you more time to do those less things that you have agreed to. So rushing, we have poor punctuality, we have rushing. Again, pretty straightforward. As we go, they're not all as straightforward, and you might be thinking to yourself, oh, wow, I just felt really called out there. Okay, being impatient. Often accusing others for things taking too long. Sometimes you're under extreme pressure to make deadlines. I want to kind of talk about this one for a second in terms of group work or group projects. I would like a little feedback in the chat. How many of you have ever been in group projects with school or with work where you're getting really impatient at the other people in the group? Shout out from the rooftops, people. Okay. Too often. Do you always think that this is valid? Do you think it's you just wanting to move quicker than everybody else? Or do you think the speed at which the rest of the group was going was a legitimate hinder to your time? Because kind of this and rushing can go hand in hand sometimes. So again, impatience, it's pretty straightforward as well. So we have poor punctuality, rushing, and impatience. Okay. Having poorly defined goals is often a sign or a symptom of poor time management. If you have very vague goals, they often produce vague results. Um, if you have specific goals, it often reduces your overall workload. Um, I'm assuming several of you have heard of SMART goals. It's an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Sometimes some of the letters use synonyms or words that are basically similar, but more or less specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So again, think about your jobs, think about your work, think about the goals that you set for yourself. A lot of times when I talk with my RAs or other students I work with, I'm like, hey, like what do you want to get accomplished? And they're like, I want to do well. Like that's a good thing. It doesn't mean that vague goals are bad goals. They're just not super specific. Because saying I want to do well, that's not really measurable or attainable. It might be realistic for me to do well, but what does that mean? How will I know when I have reached that goal? So instead of saying, I want to do well, I want to get a 3.0, or I want to get an A on my first test in every single class. Those are very specific, those are very measurable, and those are attainable. Whether getting a 4.0 is timely or not for a certain person is out of the question. You know, we work with students who are on probation, and some of their goals are like, I want to get a 4.0. And we're like, that might be specific, that might be measurable, that might be attainable, but is it realistic for you? So you need to set goals that are realistic for you. Not, I'm going to spend 6 hours every night studying for class. That is specific, that is measurable, but is that something you can actually attain? Don't be setting those specific goals if you know that you will not be able to kind of check off the specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely, those SMART goals. Again, vague goals aren't bad. You just need to kind of dig a little deeper. It's like, yes, and what? Like, what's that next level that we can get to? So again, 4 is poorly defined goals. 5, procrastination. This should be a gimme as well. It's like, you know what you need to do, but what happened? I've got plenty of time. It's not due until tomorrow, so we're going to do it tomorrow. I want to talk about a couple things with this one as well. Specifically in terms of online classes, maybe not necessarily Zoom, but those with like online lectures. How many of you are like, oh, I really need to do this. Oh, but I have some more time, so I'll do it later. And then you're like, I really should do this. Oh, but I have some more time, I'll do it later. And then eventually you don't have any time left, right? I took one online class. I feel, well, sorry, I don't want to say bad for all of you who are having to go through the pandemic with all these online classes, but I took one class, did not like it, did not do well. So for those of you who are succeeding or are trying to succeed or are doing your best in these classes, I applaud you, because that is not something I would have ever been able to do, any of my generation or younger. But procrastination is still really, really detrimental. How many of you have ever heard of the term productive procrastination, where you got a lot of things done, but maybe it wasn't the right thing? So whenever I ask this question again, please type in the chat. Sometimes when you have things to do or work to accomplish or a test to study for, what are those other things that you do to make yourself still feel like you're being productive? For me, I'll vacuum. I'm like, I don't need to vacuum, but I am, because it makes me feel like I'm being productive. What are those things you do that allow you to procrastinate on like your homework without actually getting the right things done? Do you clean? Do you cook? Do you scroll through TikTok for 3 hours until it turns into 7 hours and then it's 2 a.m. and you have done absolutely nothing for the day? What are those things that you do whenever you productively procrastinate? You sleep? Oh, I mean, yeah, no, that's exactly right. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just take a 2-hour nap and then it's 24 hours later. I'm like, what year is it? Okay. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean you're not getting things done, because you are, but think of the effective versus the efficient. The efficient is getting a lot of things done, but the effectiveness is getting the right things done. And with procrastination, we need to get the right things done in a timely manner without necessarily rushing. So number 5, procrastination. Okay. Number 6, poor performance. This kind of encompasses a lot of different sort of areas. You miss deadlines, you might be late for class, you don't meet expectations, your productivity is in decline, you're behind on tasks, you can't really follow through. This is not really specific to any sort of trait or behavior, but just poor performance across the board. So think to yourself, have I ever been in a situation where I just had so much going on and one of these things happened that were on the screen? That you were late, you missed a deadline, you had to ask for an extension, you really weren't at a place where you wanted to be. Maybe somebody's expectations for you were set high enough and you just didn't feel like you met those. Or maybe when thinking of productive procrastination, your productivity was in decline. What you wanted to do didn't actually happen. Okay, it could have been affected by your timeliness, by your impatience, by your poorly defined goals, but generally, poor performance, again, is another indication that maybe you're not managing your time well. And this is kind of where self-care really starts to tie in as well. Poor performance, self-care. Sometimes you get into a hole that you really can't dig yourself out of. You know, the higher you are, the harder you fall. Sometimes when you're at the bottom, it's so hard to get back up. So a lot of this is going to hopefully prevent you from reaching that bottom. So number 6, poor performance. Number 7, a lack of energy. How many of you right now, just like, okay, not like specifically because of the presentation, but just in general with the pandemic, with the snow day, with where you are in your semester, how many of you think that you just have a lack of energy, like all the time? Thank you for being open and honest with me and with yourself. But yeah, sometimes you have a lack of motivation, a lack of mental energy, or a lack of physical energy. Right now, I have a lack of physical energy because you know my hands are really cold and I feel like I can't do as much, and I'm so bundled up with 2 pairs of socks and 2 pairs of pants and a jacket inside, where I'm like I just don't feel like I can do anything. For students who are only in online classes, maybe that takes you know, a fatigue on your mental energy. A lack of motivation is definitely something that I know a lot of people, especially like myself, Tristan, and Christopher, who are here, something we suffer from a lot sometimes. It always feels like you're chasing your tail, how you're falling behind, and it gets so hard to catch up. And then kind of just thinking about the snowball effect. You know, this lack of energy can start so small, but the longer and longer you go, the more and more it builds up and the harder it is to kind of break through that. So again, a lack of energy, this might not be something you think about in terms of time management or poor self-care, but this, let me tell you, is one of the most important things. If you don't have the energy to be yourself or to get things done, it can be hard to necessarily come back from that. Does that mean there shouldn't be times where you literally sit around and do nothing and turn your brain off? No, you absolutely need to do that. Not just when you're sleeping, but taking time for yourself. But sometimes you don't feel you can do that if you're so behind, if you're always catching up, if you have that lack of energy, it makes you feel bad for taking time to yourself. So lack of energy, number 7. Number 8, perfectionism. I hope some of you who saw that felt really called out. Yes, being a perfectionist can often be a sign of poor time management. You spend too much time preparing and performing. You fail to start something or you go incredibly slow, and you often fail to think of the big picture. You know, sometimes perfectionists spend so much time on the details that they don't get the job done. So doing an average job and getting it done is better than a perfect job, which never gets done. Okay. Not to say you should not be detail oriented. That is not what I'm saying. You can't run to your professor and be like, no, actually somebody told me I shouldn't be detail oriented. That's not what I'm saying. Just be okay knowing that sometimes things aren't necessarily going to be perfect. Get the job done, and then maybe go back and try to fix it if you have time. Instead of spending every little detail as you start a paper, how about get a full paper done, get an average paper done. You're going to get it done quicker. Then you can go back and think about the big picture and those details after you have already completed the job, Because again, an average job that is completed is still better than one that never gets completed at all. And again, sometimes you spend so much time that it is a detriment to your self-care, to your well-being, to your time management. This is what I am extremely guilty of. Anybody in this chat who knows me knows that this is true. I can see you like shaking your head. I can't actually see you, but I know some of you are like, yep, that's true. Being a perfectionist isn't bad, but it's again, thinking about the effectiveness and the efficiency, getting the right things done and getting it done instead of just getting a lot of those detail-oriented things done. You can do both, but sometimes you need to just get the job done first. So number 8, perfectionism. Number 9, haha, indecisiveness, okay? Being unable to choose between multiple options. Sometimes you think too much, and then again, nothing happens. A lot of the indecisive decisions we make aren't of critical importance. So I'm going to list out 2 typical indecisive decisions. And again, in the chat, I want you to let me know, ooh, do you feel like you end up there, okay? Being indecisive about what restaurant to go to eat at, or being indecisive about what TV or show to watch as you're scrolling through Netflix. How many of you have wasted so much time on that decision that really doesn't mean anything at all? Okay. Yeah, sometimes you waste more time than the movie or show itself, or by the time, you know, all the time that you waste trying to find a restaurant, you could have gone having, you know, you could have had an entire meal and come back and it would have been fine. Yeah, literally every time, like I had to turn my TV off earlier because I was just sitting there like, do I want to rewatch this same exact show that I've watched over and over and over 15 times since it's ended? Or do I want to maybe try something else? And I get to a point where I'm like, wow, it's 2 o'clock and I need to go to sleep. That was a waste of my time. It was not a critical decision. It was not important. It didn't do me any good. So again, if you're one of those people, think about maybe being okay making those decisive decisions, especially ones that aren't of critical importance, like the show to watch or where to eat. Yeah, indecisiveness, number 9. Number 10, again, one I am extremely guilty of, saying yes to everything. Sometimes these people are rarely working on the tasks important to you. That's the whole point of this presentation, is thinking about time management and self-care for you. If you are saying yes to everything that everybody asks you, you are not focusing on yourself. It might kind of vaguely involve you, but you are not truly focusing on yourself. Again, this could be with class and a group member is like, hey, can you do this? I'm really busy in this other thing. And you're like, oh yeah, sure, you'll take it on. And then you get to a point where you're doing the whole project and everybody else is still getting credit for it. I know some of you, I see these names, I'm not gonna call anybody out, but I know that you are probably somebody who has done an entire group project by yourself because you have said yes to everything. This could also apply to social things, which hopefully are happening less and less right now, you know, because the pandemic and COVID, and with it being negative 60 degrees outside, you can say no. You can say no to some of those things, especially if you know that you don't have the time. Sometimes it's an excessive workload. Sometimes your brain is working at max capacity and you just need to take some time for yourself. If you are not potentially like in a really good place and you are continuing to say yes to everything, that is not going to work out well for you. Okay, that is not going to be something that will benefit you with your relationships, with your friends, with your family, with your significant other, with whoever else, with your job, with your work, with it is not going to go over well for you. It doesn't mean you have to say no to everything. Again, I'm not telling you to say no to literally everything, but think about your own workload and what you can manage. If you're somebody who needs to schedule out when you need to be social and you need to put it on your calendar or in your planner, please do that. Back when movie theaters were still open, I would go to the movies 3 times a week and I would put it on my calendar so I knew that it was scheduled and it was my time. We have a hall director who loves the Hallmark Christmas movies. She put every single movie on her Outlook calendar. that again allowed her to schedule her time to know that if somebody asked her for something, she could say no because she already knew what was on her plate. Make sure you are utilizing those planners so that you know what your workload looks like, so you know when you are exceeding it, and you know whenever you have some more of you to give. So saying yes to everything is, again, I think one of the more important ones, because the more you say yes to things, the less time you have, but you still have more things to get done, but in less time. Again, it's this vicious cycle that contributes poorly to your self-care and your time management. So again, number 10, saying yes to everything. As we move into number 11, the one that I am most guilty of. Okay, ready for it? Doing everything yourself. I'll be honest, and sometimes I don't always trust other people. Well, that kind of sounded really bad just then, but I don't always trust people to do the work the way that I necessarily want it to be done. You can't devote 110% to everything. That is not how that works. There are always things that can be delegated. You need to identify what these tasks are and remove them from your plate. So again, I want to have a little bit of kind of dialogue in the chat. Either one, do you think that you often do everything yourself? Or, hey, what are some things that you really could allow other people to help you with? So throw in some response into the chat and let's see where you guys are at in terms of, do you think you do everything yourself sometimes? Okay. A big example again with RAs. Sorry, I continue to utilize the RAs as an example. But you can collaborate on events sometimes and you have like 3 other people, but you kind of know that maybe you'll be the one who just ends up doing everything while your co-RAs get the credit. Y'all gotta stop that, because it is very, very obvious to us as supervisors. And it is very, very obvious to your professors if you were the one who does everything. Again, not that that's a bad thing, but if you were going out of your way to actively pull responsibilities from other people, this is different from everything just kind of happening to fall on your plate at the end. But part of doing everything yourself can also mean that you are the one who is actively telling someone, oh, I can just go ahead and do it. I can go ahead and do that, because you trust yourself more than you trust them. And sometimes you might produce better work, but that doesn't mean you have to take it all on your own, okay? Yeah, and sometimes it's not a lack of trust. You just feel bad asking for help. That is another one with me as well. But again, doing everything yourself is not super helpful for you, okay? I'm going to quickly go back through just so you can kind of see the 11 flash on the screen. I want you to think about the one you are the best at, that you have no problems with. Like, if you are really good at delegating, then doing everything for yourself is not a problem. It's not an issue for you. You are the best at this. If you are the worst at something, it would be, again, looking at number 11, that you do everything yourself, that you struggle with it, that you don't know where to go, and that is like your worst of the 11. So we're going to quickly scroll back through it. What I'm going to do as we go from 1 to 11, if you think it is your best, let me know. If you think it is your worst, let me know, because I'm curious where those of you who are current students fall. So working our way back, I'm not going to do anything yet. I want you to see them all first. Number 11, doing everything yourself. Number 10, saying yes to everything. Number 9, indecisiveness. Number 8, perfectionism. Number 7, a lack of energy. Number 6, poor performance. Number 5, procrastination. Number 4, poorly defined goals. Number 3, impatience. Number 2, sorry, I can't actually see, rushing. There you go, rushing. And number 1, poor punctuality. So take a second, think about what is your best that you have no problems with. Think about what is your worst, the one that you need to work on the most, because that is what I want you to pull from this. If that is the only thing you pull from this entire presentation, this workshop, whatever you want to call it, I want it to allow you something to work on. Actually, yeah. So how about this? Instead of me going through them one at a time, I'm going to scroll back through them really quickly, but I want you to go ahead and type in the chat, what is your worst and what is your best? Best being one that you have no issues with, no problems, you good. Worst being, this is the one I need to improve on. And I get, if you are sitting in here in this Zoom meeting because you have to, or because you were told to, that is perfectly fine. You are still here either way. But whatever you identify as your worst or the one you need more growth in, I really do want you to take that and think about, what can I do to improve this? It's going to make, even if it can make even the tiniest little bit of difference, then that's what I want from you. Okay. And so again, I'm hoping everybody actually is here and not just turning their phone or their camera on, and setting them off to the side so you get credit for being here. We understand that that likely happens, and we can't really have a way to kind of combat that. But for those of you who are paying attention, please, please, please think about kind of what that worst is. I'm going to go through a little bit in terms of the worst ones. Poorly defined goals, doing everything yourself, saying yes, procrastination, doing everything yourself, saying yes to everything. So for those of you who did say what you think your worst was, why do you think that is? So for like our procrastinators, why do you think procrastination is such an issue? Do you see this other like bright shiny object off to the side, I'm going to go do that instead? Or for saying yes to everything, is it because you don't trust other people, or because you just have a hard time asking for help? Why do you think that sign or that symptom is such a detriment to you? Okay, I'm going to go back through them really quickly. Sorry. A couple more things at the end that I want to go through. Ooh, that's a great perspective. Procrastination, because I can't fail at something if I don't ever do it. Like, you can't do something wrong if it never gets done. That's an interesting way to put that. To everybody who is contributing, thank you. For those who are not, that's okay. It's not a requirement for you to get credit for this, but I am hoping that you can pull something from this, one of these 11, that you can really try to work on. Okay, so I do want to pull one other video. So it's 3 minutes long. I want you to kind of look at everything that's going on. Recognize some of the things that he's doing that he's not doing, and where you maybe see yourself in this video. Some of you may have seen this. It was popular on YouTube like years ago. I mean, he's actually a Missouri State student. I don't know if this was filmed for a class or not. It was about 3 minutes, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. But be looking at everything and how it contributes to his poor time management, and maybe where you see yourself in this video.
You have a 5,000-word essay due tomorrow?
Yeah.
And you've waited until tonight to write it?
Yeah.
And you want me to help you?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so again, pretty low key, nothing super serious, but again, in the chat, I want you to type something that you noticed with his behavior, what he was doing, something that could have been improved, etc. So go ahead and throw your suggestions in, 'cause there's a lot to unpack from that video, aside from the plagiarism. Yeah. I've seen myself in there, twirling around in my chair. I've never broken open a pen with my mouth. But from him trying to start his paper to him driving to school and realizing, or driving to his class to realize it's Saturday. What did you guys notice? Kept finding other things to do. Yeah, to start with an outline, that's always great. At least get something there first before you really start to think about how perfect it's going to be. Should have gotten rid of distractions. Yeah, like putting the pen down. Just start typing, not actively looking up topics. One thing I will say about Wikipedia, fantastic thing to look at, as long as you're scrolling to the bottom and finding the sources. Don't ever pull from the body, but use it to identify sources on your topic. Piece of advice, okay. Yeah, that was a Missouri State student. And again, there's a lot of things in there between him, like, you know, slingshotting things and him maybe setting his alarm a little too early or whatever, that can kind of contribute, again, overall to poor time management. So not only are you procrastinating, and we seem very impatient, he had no motivation, he was rushing to get to school, and all that kind of put together made him realize, oh crap, it's not even due today. One, he didn't actually have a paper, it was completely plagiarized, so please don't ever do that. Or sometimes you end up doing one thing, or you start doing one thing and you end up doing something completely different, and you're like, wait a second, how did I get there? Like, you start writing your paper and you end up cleaning. Or how many people have like sat in their bed or on their couch writing with like their laptop or their tablet and completely fall asleep with it open on top of you? I do that all the time, okay? I didn't have a lot of energy, didn't have a lot of motivation. A lot of these different signs played into the fact that I could have gotten it done earlier. I could have had better performance. I could have tried to say no to some of the other things that were going on in my life, but I didn't. And my time management suffered because of it. It's going to start to play again, sorry. So one thing I want to make very, very, very clear, in terms of time management, a lot of people, when we ask about your organizational or your time management skills, the answer is always, oh, I have a planner. Cool, but how are you using it? I know a lot of students who have a planner, but they don't use it because they want to be able to answer the question, yes, I have a planner. Okay, that's not always super helpful. You need to be actively using it. So whenever you get your list of assignments from class, actually putting them in when they're due and when readings are happening and when these events you're going to are, and using it every day and looking at it every day and being productive with it. Because it's not, again, all just about being organized. Like, I can have my entire room and assignments and everything organized, but if I don't do any of it, it doesn't do me any good, okay? Focus on those individual behaviors that will improve your ability to manage that time and take care of yourself. Whether you typed it in the chat or whether you're just thinking it to yourself, there are a lot of things that you can be doing, even like little baby steps that are going to help you in the long run. A lot of you said procrastination. Figure out what you can do to stop doing that. For those of you who say yes to everything, let's sit down and talk about how we can delegate, how we can make you feel more comfortable asking for help. Because ultimately, like, yeah, we want you to do well in class and we want you to succeed academically and with your job. But a lot of that can't happen unless you're taking care of yourself. Or if you do so well in your schoolwork and with your job that you're actively avoiding taking care of yourself. We want you to be successful on both. Find a good balance of having good self-care and good time management. Because you can take care of yourself a lot and have great self-care and then neglect everything else. You can focus entirely on your academics and your coursework and completely neglect your own mental well-being. Okay, we want you to be able to do both. That's the whole point. And hopefully, again, you've identified a couple of the little behaviors that if you start to chip away a little bit and a little bit and a little bit here and a little bit there, you'll hopefully start to see a little bit of a difference. So again, I know that was really, I won't say really quick because it took about 45 to 50 minutes. But again, the whole goal of this is for you to find one thing period, hopefully more, but one thing that you can pull from this, that you can look, inward and try to improve your own behaviors and your own kind of mannerisms and what you value in terms of how you are spending your time.